Welcome to Context 101. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. Tonight, a Supreme Court decision is shaking the foundations of global trade and presidential power. For the first time in years, the justices unanimously agreed. The president cannot unilaterally impose sweeping tariffs without Congress. This ruling doesn't just affect politicians or CEOs, it impacts every American's wallet and the global economy. The world is watching as the US redefines who controls trade policy. We'll break down what this means for your daily life, the economy, and America's role on the world stage. Let's start with how this historic case began and why it matters to you. Join us as we unpack the ruling and its far-reaching consequences. The story began in April 2025, a time marked by significant political and economic tension, when former President Trump, citing a national emergency, imposed sweeping tariffs on imported goods. This move was seen as a bold attempt to protect American industries and jobs. But it also sparked immediate controversy. Businesses large and small pushed back, arguing the president was overreaching by using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, to justify these tariffs. The IEEPA, originally intended for national security threats, was now at the center of a heated debate over its scope and limitations. Two lawsuits, Resources, Inc. v. Trump and VOS Selections v. US United States, quickly rose through the courts representing hundreds of companies. These companies argued that the tariffs were causing significant financial harm and disrupting international trade relationships. The Supreme Court agreed to hear the cases, recognizing the stakes, billions in commerce, and a fundamental question of constitutional power. The decision to take on these cases underscored the importance of the issue at hand. During oral arguments, justices from both sides questioned whether the IEEPA really allowed the president to set tariffs without Congress. The justices delved into the historical context of the IEEPA and its intended use, scrutinizing the extent of executive power. The debate centered on the limits of executive authority and the major questions doctrine, which requires Congress to clearly authorize major economic decisions. Legal experts weighed in, highlighting the potential implications for future presidential actions. The skepticism in the courtroom foreshadowed a dramatic, unanimous verdict. The justices' questions and comments suggested a deep concern about the balance of power between the executive and legislative branches. The stage was set for a ruling that would reshape the balance of power over trade. This landmark decision would not only impact the immediate parties involved, but also set a precedent for how far presidential authority could extend in matters of national and economic security. The IEEPA, passed in 1977, lets the president regulate economic transactions during national emergencies, but it was never meant as a blank check. Historically, it's been used to freeze assets or sanction foreign adversaries, not to impose broad tariffs. The legal fight hinged on whether regulate importation in the law meant the president could set taxes on goods. Opponents argued that only Congress, under the Constitution, can levy tariffs or taxes. The absence of the words tariff or duty in the IEEPA became a central argument. At stake, whether Congress had accidentally handed over one of its core powers. On January 8, 2026, the Supreme Court ruled the IEEPA does not let the president unilaterally impose tariffs. The tariffs from April 2025 are now void, and the government must refund $250–200 billion to importers. The Chief Justice wrote that taxing imports is Congress's job, not the president's. This decision is a direct response to the lawsuits brought by hundreds of businesses. The ruling slashes a major source of government revenue overnight, forcing the Treasury to process massive refunds. Future tariff revenue is expected to drop by $100 billion annually, even if some tariffs return under other laws. The verdict closes one chapter and opens a new era for trade and fiscal policy. The economic impact is immediate and massive. In a matter of hours, financial markets are sent into a frenzy, with investors scrambling to reassess their positions. The sudden policy shift sends shockwaves through the heart of the nation's economy, affecting everyone, from Wall Street traders to small business owners on Main Street. The government now owes up to $200 billion in refunds, a staggering sum that will likely force the Treasury to ramp up bond sales. This influx of new debt could push up interest rates, making borrowing more expensive for everyone, businesses, homeowners, and students alike. The Federal Reserve faces new challenges as it tries to balance economic stability with the government's urgent need for cash. For consumers, the end of these tariffs means lower prices on everything from electronics to groceries, welcome relief after years of inflation. Families may finally see their budgets stretch a little further, and everyday essentials could become more affordable. Retailers anticipate a surge in demand as shoppers respond to falling prices, potentially boosting sales across the country. Businesses that rely on imports, especially in retail, tech, and manufacturing, will see costs fall and profits rise. Companies can now source materials and products at lower prices, improving their competitiveness both at home and abroad. Some firms may even expand operations or hire more workers as their bottom lines improve. Some companies, however, must quickly adjust pricing and supply chains to the new reality. Contracts must be renegotiated, and logistics teams scramble to adapt to shifting global trade flows. The sudden change creates both opportunities and headaches for business leaders navigating this new landscape. For industries once shielded by tariffs, renewed foreign competition is a challenge. Domestic manufacturers, especially in steel and aluminum, now face lower-priced imports flooding the market. Some may struggle to survive, while others will need to innovate or pivot to stay afloat. The ruling brings more predictability for long-term planning, but the sudden budget hole will spark tough debates in Washington. Lawmakers must now grapple with how to fill the gap, whether through spending cuts, new taxes, or other measures. The political fallout could be fierce, with competing interests vying for influence over the nation's economic future. The effects will ripple through markets, jobs, and household budgets. Investors watch nervously as stocks swing, while families recalculate their monthly expenses. Job seekers may find new opportunities in some sectors, but others could face layoffs as industries adjust. America's economic landscape just changed overnight. The coming months will reveal who adapts, who struggles, and how the nation moves forward in this new era of uncertainty and opportunity. The winners? Retailers, tech giants, and electronics makers. Anyone dependent on global supply chains. Lower import costs mean cheaper goods and higher profits, fueling innovation and competition. For steel, aluminum, and other protected industries, the loss of tariffs means tougher competition and pressure to cut costs. The auto industry faces a mixed bag: cheaper parts, but more foreign cars in showrooms. Each company's fate now depends on how well it adapts to a tariff-free environment. The stock market is already reacting, with tech and retail stocks surging while some domestic manufacturers brace for impact. The new trade landscape is full of opportunity and risk. The sectoral shakeup is just beginning. This ruling is about more than money. It's a constitutional reset. The Supreme Court reaffirmed that Congress, not the president, controls taxes and trade. The major questions doctrine now demands that only clear, specific laws can grant sweeping economic powers to the executive. For decades, Congress had ceded ground to the White House on trade. Now, the court is pushing back. Any future tariffs will require new legislation, debate, and public accountability. Trade policy expert Dr. Jane Smith says this restores balance and predictability to the system. The decision ensures that major economic choices return to the people's representatives. The process of making trade law just got a lot more democratic. Experts are split on the fallout, and the debate is more intense than ever. Some analysts see the recent developments as a turning point, while others warn of lingering risks and new challenges ahead. The financial world is watching closely, as every move could have ripple effects across global markets. Some, like David Seif of Nomura, warn the administration could still use other laws to impose tariffs, just at lower rates. Seif points out that while the court's decision limits certain powers, it doesn't close the door entirely on future trade actions. He believes businesses should remain vigilant, as policy shifts could still impact import costs and supply chain planning. Eddie Gabor of Key Advisors says the massive refunds will drain liquidity and could pressure the stock market. He explains that as billions flow back to importers, there's less cash circulating in the broader economy, which could lead to tighter financial conditions. Gabor cautions investors to brace for increased volatility as markets adjust to the new reality. The S&P 500, which soared after the tariffs were first imposed, now faces new uncertainty. Some strategists worry that the reversal of policy could unsettle investor confidence, while others see it as a chance for the market to correct and find a more sustainable footing. The coming weeks will be crucial as traders digest the implications. Trade policy scholars praise the ruling for restoring clarity and stability, allowing businesses to plan ahead. They argue that predictable rules are essential for long-term investment and growth, and that this decision could help rebuild trust between trading partners. For many, it's a step toward a more transparent and rules-based system. Investors are shifting strategies, favoring companies with resilient supply chains and eyeing government bonds as yields rise. Many are reassessing their portfolios, looking for ways to hedge against future disruptions. The focus is on adaptability, with an emphasis on sectors that can weather policy swings and global shocks. Gold remains a safe haven as markets digest the fiscal shock. With uncertainty lingering, demand for precious metals has surged, reflecting investor anxiety and the search for stability. Analysts expect gold to remain in the spotlight as long as questions about trade and policy persist. The consensus? The trade fight isn't over, but the rules have changed. Experts agree that while the landscape is shifting, the underlying tensions remain. Businesses, investors, and policymakers alike are preparing for a new era, one where adaptability and strategic planning will be more important than ever. This Supreme Court decision marks a turning point for American trade. The era of broad presidential tariff powers is over. Congress is back in charge. Consumers and businesses can expect lower costs and more stability, but the government faces a fiscal reckoning. The ruling is a call for Congress to lead on trade with real debate and public input. The next steps will shape America's global role for years to come. The impact will be felt in prices, jobs, and the nation's economic strength. The world is watching as the U.S. writes a new chapter in trade policy. The conversation and the consequences are just beginning.